Hey guys, Rockshield here. In this video, I want to show you what talents I use for the AOE style of pulling you've seen in my videos. The way I approach talents is I ask myself, what are the most useful talents for this style of pulling, and what is the best route to get those talents? For AOE Paladins, the first talent is simple. We will choose Consecration. Without Consecration, doing the base AOE holy damage to every mob around the area beneath us, there is no AOE style of pulling. With that said, we now have to ask ourselves what is the best path to get there. Divine Intellect is the correct choice, because increasing our base intellect by 10% increases the amount of mana we have, thus increasing the amount of consecration we can use, healing we can output, etc. Divine Strength, on the other hand, only helps us deal single target damage, which is not as useful as the AOE benefits of Divine Intellect. So again, we want to view everything through the AOE lens, what's useful for that style of pulling. Following that, Spiritual Focus is the next best talent we can use to reach Consecration, because we will not be using Seal of Righteousness as our primary seal or judgment. Instead, we would use Seal of Light or Seal of Wisdom based on whichever resource we need more at the time, health or mana. In addition to that, Spiritual Focus also gives us a 70% chance not to lose casting time while taking damage, which is a useful talent in and of itself. Following that, we have Consecration. Okay, so we've reached the most useful talent in the Paladin tree. What would you think is the second most useful talent? The answer for me is simple. Blessing of Sanctuary is the second most useful talent for the AOE style of pulling. Blessing of Sanctuary at max rank means that every hit to you, a melee hit, etc., damage dealt from all sources, not just melee, will be reduced by 24 at max rank, whereas the melee attacks have a block of up to 32, I believe, at max rank. An exceptional talent, and when I've tried in my runs without Blessing of Sanctuary and using a different blessing, for example, not only do I take more damage throughout the run, mitigate less damage throughout the run, the math for the entire pull is completely changed not having Blessing of Sanctuary. Thus, making this your second priority will be the way to go for the AOE style of pulling. And for those paladins who want to stay holy for raids, know that this spec can be reached even while raiding holy, and that's the spec that I myself use in order to raid BWL, etc. as a holy paladin. So I don't have to change specs when I get Blessing Sanctuary. Now what's the path to get there? The correct start will be Redoubt, as even though Redoubt in and of itself is not a great talent, Shield Specialization is, as it increases the damage absorption you have, which is very useful for the AOE style. Devotion Aura here isn't a great spec for us AOE Paladins, as we will be using Retribution Aura anyways, thus improved Devotion Aura doesn't make much sense. An argument for the second best talent can be made for Sanctity Aura, but unfortunately, the sheer damage mitigation of the protection tree outweighs any of these talents here in the red tree, which are not useful for AOE style. Following this, we'll put 5 points into Toughness. If you look at both Precision and Guardian's Favor, while Guardian's Favor does have some merits, as we'll see later, Precision is not useful for an AOE Paladin because you're not worried about your chance to hit on mobs that are a much lower level than you. If you were a true prot paladin, this is a great talent, or a rep paladin for example, but as an AOE style paladin, Precision is not a useful talent whatsoever. Guardian's Favor is, but the thing is, if you maximize correctly, and unless you plan on intentionally doing some sort of pull that requires 2 bops within a 3-minute span, etc., then Guardian's Favor is not as useful as Toughness, which is an always used talent because your armor value is always valuable as you're being hit. With that in mind, let's proceed up to the third level of talents where we've got some great options. First, let's max Shield Specialization, directly increasing our damage absorption. very useful for an AOE Paladin. Next, Blessing of Kings is not a great talent. I know that a lot of Paladins would want to pick this talent as it's just one talent point, but for true min-maxing you will ignore Blessing of Kings, as the blessing you will always use is Blessing of Sanctuary. Thus, Blessing of Kings, unless your guild requires it for raids, can be avoided. Improved Righteous Fury again can be avoided, because you're not worried about tanking the mobs for a higher level dungeon where players can pull off you. You don't need to increase the threat generation of Righteous Fury. The base level of 30% is fine for the purposes of our runs here. Now, Anticipation and Guardian's Favor are the only remaining useful talents for the AOE spec to reach Blessing of Sanctuary. Improved Concentration Aura is useful for Paladins who want to farm Dire Maul, for example, which I don't, so I don't take the spec. And Improved Hammer of Justice is best used for PvP players, which I'm not. For that reason, I take 5 points in Anticipation and then 2 in Guardian's Favor, followed by Blessing of Sanctuary. This, I believe, is the best 21-point combo for efficiency. You will want to reach out to your raid leaders, officers, class leaders, etc. before avoiding Blessing of Kings. I reached out to my Paladin class leader / officer in Elegance, and he has allowed me to avoid Blessing of Kings, placing the 1 extra point in Anticipation. If you're not allowed to, simply go with a spec like this. You lose 1 point in defense, which is not a lot by itself, but if you're truly min-maxing, this would be the spec I would go with in the protection tree. From here, the paths begin to diverge. If you are a true Holy Paladin spec, we'll cover that later. If you just want to do AoE styles of pulls, I would recommend you take Benediction here. Benediction and Improved Parry are the next singularly most useful talents you can reach as an AoE Paladin. I would not recommend you go for Holy Shield, as there are no other useful AoE talents to get there. Rehashing through, Devotion Aura, no. Precision, no. Improved Righteous Fury, no. Blessing of Kings, no. Hammer of Justice, Concentration Aura, Reckoning, and One-Handed Weapon Specialization are not true AoE style helpful talents. Holy Shield by itself is useful, but to get there, spending 9 more points in the protection tree isn't useful for an AoE Paladin. The next most useful talents are Benediction, because reducing the mana cost of your Judgment and Seals is very useful, as you use those very often. And then Deflection, as increasing your damage mitigation on parry by 5% is an exceptionally useful talent. Following that, there are once again no more useful talents in the Retribution tree at this point for AoE styles of pulls. That's another reason reaching Sanctity Aura is impossible, or not impossible, but pointless, because you don't need any of these other talents as an AoE Paladin. They simply don't help. I do not choose this path because I heal and raid. In order to be the best you can be as an AoE Paladin, you need gear, specifically Tier 2 from BWL. To get that gear, it's unlikely that your raid will just carry you for it. You'll have to contribute something as one of the viable specs of a Paladin class, aka in BWL, Holy, or maybe you get a spot, as a prot pally for the Suppression Rim. But it's primarily Holy, to be realistic with you and not give you false hope you may get another spot. With that said, you can get a Holy protection spec for AoE just like the one I use for myself with the choices you see here. First, max Healing Light, because this is an extra 12% healing overall for your Holy and Flash of Light spells, which you will use constantly. Then take 1 point in Improved Lay on Hands. More on this later. Illumination is the bread and butter of the Holy Paladin spec. You need 5 points here, so that every time you get a critical effect from your Flash of Light in particular, you will get refunded all of the mana. This allows you to heal endlessly, and is even somewhat useful in the AoE style, as getting that crit heal with a refund on mana can be very useful RNG at the right times, and you'll definitely be saved by it if you run enough and heal enough. Following that, Divine Favor is a great talent for an AoE Paladin. It's great because it means that you get 1 free Holy Light per run when you use your Divine Shield. Go ahead, Divine Shield, Divine Favor, heal yourself up. You get a near full health bar from one heal that didn't even cost you any mana. Thus, it's an exceptional talent that is worth reaching for the AoE style, regardless of whether or not you want to play Holy. Next, you're going to want to go with a combination of both Improved Lay on Hands and Lasting Judgment. True Holy Paladins will go with Improved Blessing of Wisdom and will eventually reach Holy Shock. Since I do not spec onto all those points, Improved Lay on Hands, which gives me more room for error if I ever use Lay on Hands because it reduces the cooldown, and Lasting Judgment, which means I don't have to judge as often if the judgment wears off, are great talents from an AoE perspective as well, unlike Improved Blessing of Wisdom or Unyielding Faith. This allows me to get the last 5 useful points in the Holy Tree, Holy Power. Increasing your crit chance by 5% is very useful. With that in mind, this is the 30-21 talent spec that I use in raiding. This is the spec I also use in AoE style of pulling. Thus, you don't have to switch back and forth to make thousands of gold while also healing in raid to get the best in slot gear for your AoE style of pulling. Thus, I would recommend this talent specialization to those of you wishing to emulate this style. Now say I was going for my absolute best talent spec. For me, it would be something like this. What I would do is I would place the 9 points that I would have placed in Lasting Judgment and Improved Lay on Hands in Deflection and Parry. This means that I would still have the benefits of Divine Favor, but I would also get Benediction and Deflection instead of Holy Power, Lasting Judgment, and 1 extra point in Improved Lay on Hands. If I was particularly worried about my Lay on Hands, I could simply go with 2 out of 2 there. This would probably be my ideal spec for most AoE Paladins, as you get the best effects from all 3 trees. With that, I want to say thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.